You're with Cheryl Lee, that radio chick. Today we have one of the most interesting men on the planet with us. Joe Turtur started out in heavy metal band from Sydney, forming in 1980. Heaven, touring America with Judas Priest and Iron Maiden. Toured as a drum technician and a stage manager with the Divinyls, INXS, Midnight Oil, Crowded House. Stage managed The Pope and Rock Quiz. He has spent 16 years feeding thousands of hungry people at Bluesfest, is a cancer survivor, almost a member of AC/DC, and has come full circle, now playing in new Adelaide band, the U Blues Band. Welcome, Joe. Let's start at the beginning. Your timeline is absolutely incredible. Now tell us what started it all, everything that happened in between, and what's coming up next for Joe Turtur. So, Joe, thank you so much for coming in today. You've done everything, man.
Cheryl, it's a pleasure. Yeah, I've done a fair bit in my life.
I do not know how we're going to fit your story into one episode.
We'll condense it. Been an interesting life. Obviously, drumming was the first part of it. I think I started playing drums when I was 7, and at school I did military stuff in brass bands. I joined my first band when I was out of school, 17. I worked at Laurie Treadray's Music Exchange. I did a single there at the ABC with Lisa Edwards and joined Fat Lip. Fat Lip was prior to Heaven. Heaven was the big sort of act that I joined, and that's when I went to Sydney and signed a contract for 4 years. Did an album at EMI 3 months later. I was 19 when I did that album, and then we went to America when I was 20. We supported Judas Priest and Iron Maiden over there. It was
oh my God, how was that?
It was big.
For a young lad of 20.
It was big. I wasn't even the legal age of drinking. And wow, I was doing a bit of drinking back then.
That would have been an education?
Yeah, it was. We did 3 months with Priest on the road all around America during winter. And it was a lot of fun. It was crazy. Small gigs were 8,000 people. You know, we went on to rest in LA to do another album. We stayed in LA for about 8 months because we were writing a lot of crap. And then we went in and recorded the second album, Where Angels Fear to Tread. Had a bit of lineup changes within the band. I got shafted and I came back to Australia and started playing with Rob Riley and The Beast. And that was an education in itself.
I bet it was.
Did a bunch of cover band stuff, fell out with Rob a little bit, but that was rectified later on.
You've kissed and made up.
Yeah, we did, actually.
Before we find out what came after Heaven for Joe, let's have a Heaven song now. This is Fantasy, recorded live on Countdown back in 1982.
Speaking of Homo sapiens, let's go Neanderthal. It's heavy metal hell with Heaven and Fantasy.
I think it was 1985 or 86. I couldn't really get a job as a drummer, and I got an opportunity to work with the Divinyls as a drum tech. 20 years later, I did every show that the Divinyls have ever done.
Wow.
You know, for the first 3 years, found it very challenging to work with Chrissy, but then we became the best of friends. Worked with, 6 drummers that they had. In between that, I drum tech for John Farris and INXS and Rob Hurst with Midnight Oil. And in America, I was drum teching for Paul Hester from Crowded House, which was a sad moment because I couldn't understand why Paul had committed suicide afterwards. And I was very, very close to Paul. Paul was just a great guy. I was in Chicago and I'd never met them, and they'd just come back from Jamaica. They'd had a holiday and they had a break, and I started with them, and Chicago was freezing at the time. And it was a 9-month tour that I did with 3 different bands, Divinyls, an American band, and then ended up with Crowded House, came back to Australia. I just couldn't handle it anymore.
Well, you'd been doing it really for half of your life.
Stopped playing drums, which was my passion, which really hurt me because all I wanted to do was be a drummer, you know, and I'd done some amazing things. Like I did a gig on New Year's Eve at San Francisco in front of 20,000 people. It was at the Cow Palace, and it was a legendary sort of event that used to happen yearly, and we were
part of that.
Divinyls was so much fun. I had a ball with Chrissy. But then I also had great times with John from INXS. Rob Hurst was challenging because he was having a baby. Rob, to this day, is a really good friend of mine, and so much touring. And I decided to come back to Adelaide because I was living in Sydney. 1996, I ran a restaurant with my father, Lungamare, down at Glenelg. That's what I did basically for 10 years. Getting married, having 2 children. 2006, that all fell apart. Marriage, restaurant got sold, and I started at Bluesfest as a catering guy.
So how does Joe from Glenelg end up being food guru at Bluesfest?
Well,
how does that happen?
it was funny because 2006, my separation of my marriage, I didn't want to be in Adelaide for Easter, and I rang a friend of mine who'd given me plenty of jobs. We call him Sneaky Pete in the business. Sneaky had given me my job with Divinyls, and he'd given me work with Jimmy Barnes, with him and a whole bunch of other people. I rang Sneak and I said, look, I need a job. And he goes, doing what? And I said, I don't care.
Anything.
And he goes, just come up to Byron and we'll sort you out. So I went up there and I ended up doing these riders. We had these packs that we were giving the bands. So I was sort of in charge of that. And I said to Sneak, man, the food's really bad here. He goes, do you want to have a go? And I'd done catering prior to that in Sydney with More Than a Morsel. We had the contract at the Sydney Entertainment Centre, and we were doing every band you could possibly think of. So I'd had catering experience. I'd even done movie catering as well at the back of a truck. Did an ABC series on the location, which was very challenging, you know, getting up at 4 a.m. and serving an 11-course breakfast by 6:30, 7 o'clock. And I got involved in cooking because when I was living in America, the food there was disgusting. Mm-hmm. My mum was this unbelievable chef cook. And I go, Mum, how do you make this?
Is your mum Italian?
Mum is Italian.
So she was born cooking.
Totally. And so I learnt a lot from my mum. Then going into a restaurant for 10 years, I learnt a hell of a lot more about food. And then when I decided to stop being a restaurateur and getting into catering, Bluesfest just opened up this really big door. 16 years later, I'm still there.
And you've fed thousands
of people. We average 1,000 meals a day backstage, and we do 7 days of food, so that's 7,000 meals every year, 16 years. I think it's about 112,000 meals.
Yeah, wow.
When we're looking at tons and tons of food that I've organised, from meat to fruit and veg to dry goods to, you know, I'm working with really, really challenging chefs because my staff has ended up being up to 30 people. So I go to Bluesfest and I build a restaurant from scratch, from nothing, from dirt. Literally. Yeah, it's dirt. You know, the hawker comes in and then all the equipment I organise, and then I work with the chefs and we put it together, and then we deal with the bands, you know, and some of the bands are really challenging. You know, we've got some major league artists that perform there that can be really problematic. Some of them have been really, really interesting.
Have you got a favourite story you can share with us?
Yeah, look,
without getting killed?
Look, Melissa Etheridge, funnily enough, what happens is the production people flag me riders and we have them in a Dropbox and they go, okay, look into this person, and one of them was Melissa Etheridge. She wanted, quote, wild caught, organic, free range, grass fed, cage free, non-processed organic foods. On different days, she had different menus that she specifically wrote.
Right.
Anyway, I rang the tour manager and I said, what's this wild caught? What does this mean? Yeah. He goes, so you've read the rider. And a rider, if people don't know, is all the specifications of what a band wants, from lighting to sound to security to everything involved in their show. So I get the hospitality rider, and she wanted for lunch tuna, but line caught, not farmed.
Not in a net, it had to be actually caught on a fishing line.
Yeah, and I'm like going, I said to the tour manager,
Does it taste different?
I said, are you for real? We're at a festival, and I said, it ain't going to happen. And he said, look, as long as it's good produce. Another thing, he goes, Melissa needs a room in the kitchen to make her own salad. And I went, are you serious? Yeah, Melissa likes to do her own salad. And I said, a kitchen with 30 people. And if they see Melissa Etheridge walking in to do her own salad. Anyway, in the end, Melissa was a really lovely person. She was very easygoing.
Let's have one of Melissa Etheridge's hits now. Bring Me Some Water. And we're going to hear from Joe after this. Which artist had a very special request with his boiling water?
Somebody bring me some water.
A lot of bands that I've worked with, it's their staff that make things difficult. When you actually meet the artist is really easygoing. You know, Robert Plant, he specifically wanted a kettle that had a switch on it that boiled water at 100 degrees. And we all know that water boils at 100 degrees. So I had to actually go and find a kettle, and he was very specific, PG tips, tea. And what happened there was we did the catering in Bluesfest, and then I had to fly to Adelaide to do the Thebarton Theatre show. And I'd hired someone I'd never hired before to do it, because one team was in Byron and half my team was in Adelaide, and I hired this guy, and I said I'd never hired him before, and I said, don't be starstruck by Robert Plant. I said, no autographs, no photos.
No selfies.
No selfies. So what does he do?
Oh, no.
Robert's sitting down eating, and he brings this box set out of Led Zeppelin with a texter for him to sign. His security push him aside. Robert Plant actually comes up to me and says, did you hire this guy? And I said, yeah, I did. And he goes, I want you to get rid of him. I said, look, not a problem. I said, I'm really sorry that that's happened. He was really easygoing about it. He understood, but he's like high-level security because he's a megastar and there's security, and, you know, he doesn't know this guy from a bar of soap, and he's seen me because he saw me in Byron, and then we flew down to Adelaide, and I actually had to fly back to Byron to finish up the festival as far as packing down. I'm in Byron for about 6 weeks. It takes me 4 weeks to build a restaurant, 8 days of food. We'd pour it down in about 2 to 3 days.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's pretty quick pulling it down. Setting it up is a lot more intricate. But yeah, look, catering's been a job that has been really rewarding to me as opposed to playing drums, because I've made thousands of dollars from catering, the music industry, but I've not really made much money from playing drums. You know, obviously I've had to survive and live, and working on the road as a stage manager, that was great fun because I could work with any band and get paid really well and tour, and, you know. And it was my father that called me, and I was in America, and he said, time you stop doing this rock and roll shit, get a real job. I mean, what's a real job? I don't think I've ever had a real job. I had a haircut? Yes, I think I'd had it because I did have long curly hair.
So stage management as well.
Yes, I ended up being stage manager with the Divinyls. Funnily enough, I did the Pope in Sydney. The Pope, the actual Pope in Sydney. That was very, very interesting, being the Italian Catholic boy that I was. The Pope has about 7 guys that are all dressed in full-on Armani suits that carry these briefcases. And I was wondering what was in the briefcases, and apparently they're like these guns that fold out.
Yeah, like mafia.
Like mafia style. And I got on famously with the main guy, you know, speaking Italian with him. And the Pope likes his microphone stand held by an altar boy, like just the boom arm and no stand. This one sound guy couldn't get it right. And I just jumped in and went, do it like this.
Let me do it.
Do it like this. Hold the thing there. Make sure you don't hit him in the mouth. It was a 2-week event. The security was extremely full on.
Yeah.
But look, catering has, you know, opened up.
What is the most fun you've ever had on a catering?
The most fun catering job is always Rockwiz. I love working with Rockwiz, with Julia and Brian, their crew. Ken, the producer, fun people. Dougal, the roadie, I've worked with him. We did stage for the Eurogliders together. Peter Bain-Hogg, the executive producer, funnily enough, did a Heaven film clip, which I had no idea after doing catering with Rockwiz about 10 times. It was only last year that Peter contacted me and he goes, were you in this band Heaven? And I went, yeah. And he goes, I did your film clip. And I went, are you kidding me? He goes, yeah. Remember that clip we did in Port Melbourne? Freezing cold. He goes, yeah, I was the director. Rockwiz is fun. Rockwiz are doing the next Bluesfest, and I'm so looking forward. It's a bit family orientated. Like, we're very, very good friends. But outside of Bluesfest, I've done some great gigs. AC/DC, I did 20 days catering. Back in 2010, I did 11 days catering in Brisbane with one team. Then I had to fly down to Adelaide to do Adelaide Oval, which was 9 days. And that was for the steel crew building the AC/DC set, the stage. Pretty challenging. having two teams, one in Brisbane. I didn't even stay for the show. I left, had to come to Adelaide, set up Adelaide. So all up, it was 20 days catering. It was a great bill, though. It was with my friend that's given me jobs over the years, Elton John. I've done catering for 5 times and never in Adelaide. Darwin, Canberra, Tasmania, Mackay and Cairns. And Elton has some very interesting rider things. His flower arrangements are really specific.
Specific, really.
And pedantic. Very, very pedantic. I've actually brought you a gift of Elton John's rider flower arrangements, even to the point of...
Oh, look, they've provided diagrams and
got
photos and everything.
Photographs of how they want their flowers arranged. And in Elton's dressing room, this is probably very gospel and not really public knowledge, but hey, what the hell?
It's only us.
He's very specific where he wants 5... Vases, square cut. 8 roses, red, pave cut, which is a certain style of rose with all the thorns and the leaves taken off. But as you can see, it's very specific.
Yes. I mean, they look beautiful, but goodness me, there's half a page explaining how to do the little flowers.
Exactly. The band dressing room, floral arrangement, 1 large vase, approximately 600 by 900, 2 feet high in total with fresh coloured flowers, no chrysanthemums, carnations or daisies. These must be fresh and contain only flowers, no sticks or fillers.
I wonder what he's got against
Oh, look, it's probably one of the most challenging but rewarding gigs.
Yeah.
Because the band are great. Now that I've done them 5 times, I know the crew really well. I suppose Darwin was the most challenging one because they changed his rider. The day of the gig, he wanted some Laurent Perrier champagne, and I said, it ain't going to happen.
In Darwin.
They said, why? And I said, you're in Darwin.
You're in Darwin.
I said, you're not going to get that champagne. I'd taken up some special water for him, some Voss water. Look, you know, some of these things that these bands want, and I get to read all their stuff. You know, there was one challenging gig at Theberton Theatre that I did with a gentleman called Morrissey, who was the singer from the Smiths. It was an all-vegan, vegetarian menu. I bought this shirt years ago in Las Vegas saying, I love burgers. And I just wear it. Just wear it as a catering uniform because it's got, I love burgers. It's got a heart, a red heart, and it's got Las Vegas on it. And I was wearing it. They asked me if I could change my shirt. Morrissey's this really, really strict vegetarian. Okay, so I went home and I thought, I'm going to play with this. I got a Gibson T-shirt and I wore it. And I said, has he got any offence to Gibsons or is he a Fender boy? And they just laughed and they said, look, we really appreciate what you've done. Bluesfest, as a festival, we have very challenging acts. Lionel Richie was very challenging, but we dealt with that. Lauryn Hill.
And so many, and particularly next year, that has to be the biggest lineup ever, is it?
We have that many bands, but this is all Australian.
Yes.
So no overseas bands. There's a couple of New Zealand bands. You know, we got the likes of Midnight Oil. And so I know the guys from Midnight Oil, so it's really cool. Jimmy Barnes. I know Jimmy incredibly well. And I'm actually doing a food thing with Jimmy because Jimmy at the moment's right into his food. So we're going to be doing Jimmy Barnes' a menu day where he's going to come in and we're going to do his food. We're going to film it and they're going to present his food for the day, which is obviously going to be Thai food, I'm imagining, because Jane's going to be there.
You heard it first here.
Yeah.
It's a scoop for us. Time for a song, I reckon. How about Barnesy? Let's get him out of that kitchen and shaking those pots and pans. Shake, rattle and roll from the Rhythm and the Blues album. Back to chat more with Joe Turtur right after this.
Get out of that bed, wash your face and hands.
I can't wait to get back to work.
Yeah, I bet.
It's been a year and a bit off. I suppose I was lucky in a sense. I got cancer last year and that was a real challenge for me because I would never have thought that I was going to get cancer and I got through it. A year later, I got a complete green light. I've actually got a appointment this afternoon with my surgeon. It's been a challenging road to go down and I don't wish cancer upon anyone. But it was lucky in the sense that I just didn't give up any work.
You have to look for a silver lining. The timing, at least, was
Timing
good.
was perfect.
Because it was during the COVID downtime.
Yeah.
Because you would hate to have a whole heap of work,
I know.
tours, Bluesfest, and lose all of that.
I actually
due
went to
illness.
Bluesfest in April with my alostomy bag. I had an alostomy bag for 6 months. It was very, very challenging. But I did it, and I shouldn't have done it, but I did it.
That's dedication for you.
I had to, but we didn't actually do a festival. We got shut down the day before.
Tell me about it.
Oh, that's right. You were on the bike. That's right.
Hubby and I rode for
That was.
4 days
I
solid.
can't believe you did that.
And
That's
found out
what
at
I
Ballina.
felt. And then when you told me that, I thought you were on your own bike, but you were on the back of.
That's his bike.
That's just sheer dedication. I've driven there once in a car, and I'll never do it again. Not in a
guess
million
what?
years. I know you're doing it again. That's insane. That is.
You've shared some of the best and the funniest. Can you share some of the worst times?
There's a million bands in Bluesfest days because they come there. It's their show, but we're a festival. I've had some great experiences. Doobie Brothers was probably one of the best. Now, Doobie Brothers were playing at Theberton Theatre here in Adelaide. So I had one team doing Theberton Theatre and I was in Byron doing Bluesfest. And I felt sorry for them because Doobie Brothers want to eat after the show. And that's full catering. 11 p.m, they want to sit down and eat. There's 20 of them.
Yep.
I felt sorry for my staff because I'm thinking, oh, shit, you know, like they've got to hang around all day, all night. Anyway, coming up to Bluesfest, they were on stage at like 6. I thought, oh, great, they're just going to come into catering afterwards and eat. No. They wanted to eat at 11 o'clock at Bluesfest. And I went, really? Seriously? Why? And I said to management, we can't just do this. And they said, well, you kind of have to. We did it. We did 20 people at 11 p.m. at Bluesfest. Full sit down, a la carte. They'd pre-ordered. Up in Byron, we had an a la carte sort of restaurant situation. And it was the most rewarding gig. We all got photographs autographed personally to us, and they actually went on to the Doobie Brothers website to say that I was one of their best caterers that they've ever had in the world.
That's a compliment.
Yeah,
That's
it
a
was
huge compliment.
It was.
Because they would have been everywhere.
Yeah, they have. But after 16 years of doing Bluesfest, it sort of all blends into one big show. We're looking at a sold-out show, hopefully festival next Easter. With COVID, it's been very challenging.
Let's have some Doobie Brothers now. China Grove from 1973. Back after this to hear how Joe found his way back to his passion, drumming.
With COVID, for me, in Adelaide, I started playing drums again. I got together with my buddy Vince Concerino.
So you've gone full circle and you've come back to your passion, your childhood passion.
Yeah, Vince called us up and said, let's have a jam. It started off as just we did it at the House of Sap first, and Vince had a few original songs that he wanted to do. Then we started doing it at my place up at Belair. It's been really, really fun, and people are really liking it, and we're starting to do gigs. Vince has got a full diary. He's got his solo album coming out. He's got a gig coming up with the Zepp Boys, the 50th anniversary. I've got a big event happening in my life. I'm turning 60, and that's a real serious head equation that I've got to deal with. I don't actually know what I'm going to do with it. We've got a gig coming up at the Gaslight on the 18th of December with the U Blues Band, which is me, Vince, David Kennedy, and Ronnie Anderson. Look,
so David Kennedy's from
Almost Human, and he did the Boys Are Stuck in Town a couple of weeks ago.
And of course your great mate Mark Robert Snodey on harmonica as well.
We just have so much fun playing, and we experiment with songs. We've got a rehearsal coming up on Friday. Really looking forward to seeing the guys. It's great. I mean, playing with Vince, and I've known Vince since I was 17 when he was in the Dukes.
Yeah.
You know, I was going out to watch them rehearse on Paynham Road, and it was so much fun, and come full circle with Vince.
Yeah.
We've jammed a lot. but never been in
the same band together.
Well,
Well, I just wanted to thank you all personally on behalf of Support Action
Yes.
Australia, of course, because a few months ago we were caught short just
Yeah.
before our luncheon with a band pulling out, and our chairman, Gary Burrows,
Yes.
said, who should we call? And I said, maybe Vince can sing a few songs. And so we got hold of Vince and he said that he'd bring this
I know, it was
band,
really funny
and it was
because
awesome.
Vince came to rehearsal and said, we got a gig. And I went,
We're not gonna
what do
pay
you mean we
you."
got a gig? We're doing this Support Act luncheon gig at the Marion at the Highway. He goes, there's no money in it, but it could be a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And look, our motto is each gig is worth 10 rehearsals. Doing one show, seriously, 10 rehearsals.
Yeah, because there's nothing like actually being in front of a real live
that's
audience.
right. You put in front of an audience and you have to perform, I
You
suppose.
can't go, stop,
No,
start
that's
over,
right.
start over.
That's right. And I do that a lot at rehearsals. And he looks at me and he goes, what's wrong? And I go, no, let's just do that again. That's happened to me on stage a couple of times, but I won't say, no, Rob Riley I played with Rob for 10 years.
Yeah.
Rob was the person that brought me back to playing drums in the middle of having my restaurant. He rings me up and he goes, dear, you got to come and play drums with me. You're a great drummer. And I did 10 years with Rob Riley. We didn't do many gigs. We did a lot of rehearsals. Rob's stuff's great. Rob is such a beautiful melodic guitar player. Obviously, we did, the Rose Tattoo stuff, and we did do a few shows, but not a great deal. And then I just went jamming down at the Gaslight, Tuesday jam night, and I just got into playing blues. The Heaven stuff, look, there's been a few issues there. We've had a bit of a falling out.
You wouldn't be the only band to have some issues.
No. There was talk of a reunion, but it's not happening. I'm not doing it with them, and they're not doing it with me, and they can't do it with the name Heaven because I own the name. I own the trademark. And I've registered the business. That's a long-term project that may happen.
Never say never.
Yeah, never say never. And I've spoken to our old manager, Michael Browning, about it. We might get Michael involved in the next venture.
Let's listen to a Heaven song now. This was going to be a single that was going to be released in 2012, but it never happened. Hot. H-O-T.
At the moment, I'm just happy with, doing a few gigs with the U Blues Band.
So you guys were invited to open for The Boys Are Stuck in Town at the
That's
Bridgeway,
right.
and that was amazing.
On the night, it was a really hard gig. It was really hot.
Yes.
And I said to Vince afterwards,
Because he did double duty.
he did 2 gigs. I said, mate, this has got legs. Let's tour with it. And he goes, Joe, I'm never doing that again. He goes, I'm never doing 2 shows in one night. He goes, I can go on stage with the Zepp Boys for 2.5 hours and that's fine. But doing a U Blues band and doing another band, nah.
Yeah.
Not going to.
Lots of new material too in that other band.
Yeah,
'Cause
lots
it
of
was
stuff that he had to
Angels
remember.
and Jets and
Yeah, Vince is a consummate professional. It is so great to be working with a person that is so dedicated to his craft. He loves playing guitar, and he's playing guitar in this band. With the Zepp Boys, he's the singer, and he does play a little bit of acoustic. But with this band, he's actually doing solos. He's really, really loving it.
and getting to play some of his original material,
Yes.
which is amazing stuff.
Yes, it is really good stuff to do. We're great mates, we have been for a long, long time. It's really rewarding. But he's got his thing to do. I've got Bluesfest that's looking at being really big next year. I've got a lot of work to do on that. I've already started phone calls. We've got this whole COVID thing that we have to deal with.
You've got a birthday party to plan.
I got a birthday. I got a 60th. We've got one gig happening at the Gassy on the 18th, I think it is. Vince is doing his solo album in March. He's also doing Zepp Boys in February on the 19th, and my birthday's on the 21st. So we're not doing anything around that time because he will spend a lot of time rehearsing that show because it's the 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
For Led Zeppelins. And it's great to be busy again. It's great to be healthy, no cancer. It's great to be alive, playing music again. I love playing drums. Drums has been my passion as a child.
What a ride.
Well, I never made any money out of playing drums, but I've made thousands out of the music industry. From a drum tech, stage manager, now catering. I'm hoping the doors of catering keep opening for me. I have got a good product. I've got a great team behind me. I got a phone call this morning from a very well-known production manager. His daughter is getting married in Byron. Joe, do you have any chefs in Byron that can do my daughter's wedding? So I'm organising a wedding. Look, there's been some great gigs also working with Poster George as a driver. I've done thousands of gigs with George and driven some of the most amazing people in the world.
I think this is actually a 6-part series.
Yeah.
Joe, we've got to do the driving.
Yeah.
There'll be some stories there, I bet.
Driving is huge stories.
Touring, the Bluesfest food.
Bluesfest, the playing.
Yeah.
With driving, it's always fun working with George, Poster George as a character. He was one of the first guys that I met when I was 17. And I said, I want to get involved in the music industry. And he goes, go and see that guy Joe Fish and Chips at Memorial Drive, which was doing all the crewing service. And I was literally on the other side of the gate saying to Joe, let me in, I want to work. And he did, back in 1978. And I started working with Poster George as a driver in 1999. And I've done, so many gigs with him, production, driving bands like Metallica, and I drove Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath. Well, that's a funny story because I was in Europe, 1985, and I was looking for work and I was in London and I knew the guys from Iron Maiden, and I called them and they were in Germany. And I said, look, I'm looking for work. And they said, we have a drummer. And I said, no, I just want road work. And they goes, no, we'll get you a job playing drums. They hooked me up with Geezer Butler, who was doing a solo band in London, and I was shit scared nervous, was very, let's say, nerve-wracking because there were 6 drummers that were auditioning. John Coughlin from Status Quo, a guy from Echo and the Bunnymen, the other guy was from Gary Moore's band. There was me and 2 unknowns. I got a phone call to say they can't decide between you and another guy. And the guy that got the gig was from Gary Moore's band. I did need the money when I was in London. I was as broke as could be. I should have got that. Even when I was in heaven in Los Angeles, I actually got asked to have a jam with AC/DC when Phil Rudd got kicked out. I was 21. I had no idea what to do. I should have just said yes straight away, but I didn't. And 2 days later, they had hired Simon Wright. He's become a really good friend of mine and we have a laugh about it. He did some albums with AC/DC. Hey, who knows what would have happened?
It's that sliding doors thing again.
It's that thing like, would I be alive today? Would I have 2 children? A big what if.
I think it's happened how it's meant to be.
And I'm quite happy with that. I mean, if we had a time capsule, it would be great to go back and say yes, and I'd really give it a crack. But I didn't know what I knew back then when I was 21 to what I know now. And been through, sickness and health and giving up a lot of things in life, like smoking cigarettes and drinking less and definitely taking less drugs than what I used to.
Anybody who loves the blues would like to look up the availability of the U Blues Band Facebook page.
Yes, we have a U Blues Facebook page.
Or just get down to the Gassy.
Or just come down to the Gassy. It's Vince's band, but we're a group. He throws a lot of ideas in. We all sit around and go, yep, that's good. Let's not do that. Let's do this. We all pitch in. He's the instigator of it all because he's, as I said, the consummate professional. I love him for that. It's great to go to a rehearsal and be organised. I've been to rehearsals where it's been total
carnage.
People were sitting around getting stoned and I'm like going, nah, I'm not into this. Let's, work.
You are clearly really passionate about your drumming and I'm so glad that it's come back round that full circle and you're drumming again.
I consider this a professional band. We've all got other things happening and Vince has obviously got a product that he's been passionate about for 35 years and it's been really rewarding to him. He's got a solo album coming out, so he's got that happening. I've got Bluesfest. I've got other things that I want to do musically, but we will get together. And I think this band will stay together based on that. There's no real agenda.
We just play when and where you can.
It's casual. It's fun. We have a laugh.
Did it start because you were all stuck in Adelaide for COVID? You didn't want to play golf, so you just started playing together?
Pretty much.
And it's sort of grown organically.
It grew. It took time. We rehearsed out at Paraka, out at Reno's rehearsal rooms, and I had to go back into hospital. And so then it was 6 weeks recovery for me, and I couldn't really play. I couldn't sit behind a drum kit. We had a bit of a break. We did do a gig later on at the Gassy. Mark from the Gaslight booked us on that basis. But we're not really a headline band, but we're getting to that point where we're getting gigs. It was great to open up at the Bridgeway. That was a great professional gig. Who knows what's going to happen, where this is going to lead to. I hope it leads to more, only because I really love playing with the guys, and I think it's a great groove, you know. My fitness levels are nowhere near what they used to be.
Well, you're not 21 anymore,
no,
are we?
That was my peak. You know, I joined Heaven when I was 18 until I was 22. Basically stopped playing when I was about 25, 26. But I did a whole bunch of stuff. You know, I've even played with Stevie Wright. You know, I did some gigs with him. He was challenging because he had a drug problem and it was really, really hard. One of the highlights of my life was playing Evie Putts 1, 2 and 3.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, wow, this is great. Stevie was so out of it, you know.
We could talk till the sun goes down. Will you come back and have another chat to us?
Absolutely. There's lots of stories. Every band's got a writer. There's some really interesting ones. Status Quo comes to mind. They were very specific in after the show they wanted just a grilled piece of chicken breast. I mean, there's been some shockers. Lionel Richie was an absolute shocker for me, but who
would have thought that?
And Lionel Richie at Bluesfest, I mean, really? Peter Noble, our director, it's his show. It's been really rewarding working for Peter for 16 years. Byron's my second home. I'm going away in March for 6 to 8 weeks. I'm actually going to do 6 weeks on site, and I'm having a holiday afterwards with a friend that was a fan of Heaven. That I met when I was 19. She has gone on to be Barry Humphrey's makeup hair artist for 30 years.
Wow.
She's done movies. She's done television shows. We are very, very close friends. I'm going up to stay at her house on the Sunshine Coast.
Nice.
And it's going to be fun. And I'm just going to relax with my partner. And, you know, I haven't had a holiday for God knows how long. I mean, we've had a holiday in Adelaide, sitting around waiting for the borders to open. Look, 60 is just a number. I reckon I've got another 10 years left of me or more.
You are just living proof of my theory that rock and roll is the fountain of youth.
They told me in the beginning it was sex, drugs and rock and roll. And let me tell you, it was. Back in the 80s, it was definitely sex, drugs and rock and roll. I survived that era. I come out the other end. I was sober for 8 years, but then people said I was boring. Now I'm just sort of...
moderate.
Being in the restaurant game for 10 years, I sampled a lot of wines and stuff. That was another period of my life that was awesome. Being a restaurateur and award-winning, we were one of the best restaurants in Adelaide back in the year 2000. I helped Vince set up, he had a little pizza bar
He did.
in Harndorf, the Casalinka. He came to me, said, can you give me a hand? So Vince and I have been really, really good friends. We've been great mates, and we're both wogs. We love being Italian food, culture. Poor old David is left out. He's the only skip in the band. We give him a little bit of shit about it.
And he's blonde.
And he's a blonde skip, and he's a real typical skip. But he reckons he's English. I don't believe him. No, look, it's great. It's a lot of fun. Life's a lot of fun. And all I can say is if you have a passion in life, you've got to go with it. I say this because music these days is really, really... I would hate to be a musician trying to make it in today's society. We don't sell records anymore. We survive on live gigs, and live gigs are limited. My first year with Heaven was 300 shows, and there's only 356 days in a year.
Yeah, that's right.
And I did an album in that as well. So there was an album that we spent a month or two making, and then we did 300 shows. We did triples some nights. You can't do that anymore.
That's right. It's a whole different world.
It's a whole different era. Pokies really killed us. Venues have changed. My son's, he's 21, and he rang me the other day. He's doing some rap stuff, and he goes, how do I get a gig? And I said, well, you got to go to the gig owners and say, I'll do a gig for nothing.
Let me play.
Let me play. Just get out in front of a crowd and do
tough.
some gigs. Quite a challenging thing for me to answer my 21-year-old son who's doing rap that I really dislike with a passion.
I'm with you, I'm afraid. It's been so wonderful talking to you. We're unfortunately out of time because, as I say, we could talk till the sun goes down.
I can talk underwater.
Let's play another Heaven song now, shall we?
Yeah, sure.
Got a favourite? Let's go out with it.
Look, In the Beginning was a single that we did in between the first and second album. That was actually produced by Kevin Stanton from MySex. It's one of my favourites. Kevin was a wonderful guy. We did a lot of stuff with MySex back in those days. So let's play In the Beginning. Thank you for letting me talk a whole bunch of stuff, Cheryl. It's been great.
It has been great. We will absolutely get together again
Yeah.
for part 2, 3 and 4.
I'm the guy that's almost nearly famous, right? Not quite, but nearly.
Oh, thank you for sharing your stories with us. And here's Heaven now.
In the beginning, there was W-R-O-K. And then there was...
You're with Cheryl Lee, that radio chick. Thank you so much for joining me on the Still Rocking It podcast. Hope to catch you again next time. Get out when you can, support Aussie music, and I'll see you down the front.